Hey guys, it's Mike from the Velvet Review, and we have been so hard at work on the epic 686 fly rod from Swift Fly Fishing. So, where are we to this point? We've already attached the reel seat and cork, and we measured for our guides. In addition to that, we did go ahead and find the spine. So, today we're going to cover prepping your fly rod for the process. We're going to cover finding the spine, we're going to cover attaching the reel seat and cork, and we're going to cover measuring your guides. So, 4 things, pretty simple but pretty important. So, I'm going to walk you through it, and I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks that came up along my part of the process. Let's talk about finding the spine of the fly rod. So, the directions say you can do it or you cannot. It's entirely up to you. In the event that you do want to do it, this is what you're going to do. You're just going to put your hand out. Lay your hand out flat just like this. And then you're going to lay a section of the rod, not the butt section, but the top 2 sections, or maybe the top 3 if you have a 4-piece rod. And then you're just going to roll the rod just like this. And you're going to feel it pop into place. And when it pops into place, you've found the spine. Go ahead and take your China marker and make a line right up there at the top of your hand to indicate where the spine is on the fly rod. We're going to prep the fly rod. So, this part, what you need to do is just wipe down the fly rod with some rubbing alcohol. I don't suggest you use the scotch that Carl told you to use in the directions. Then, you're just going to take the lint-free cloth that came in the directions and wipe that bad boy down. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Alright, so now we're talking about attaching the reel seat and cork. Pretty easy process, and this part's really exciting because the rod's going to start coming together and you're going to get a feel for what it's going to be like out there on the river. So, the easiest way to do this is just dry fit the cork and the reel seat. Once they're dry fitted, use that China marker, mark at the top of the cork, and also make sure you mark at the top of the reel seat to give yourself a guide for the prepping process for this. Once you go ahead and take those off, use some sandpaper. Rub it down, score it up so that the epoxy goes ahead and adheres to the fly rod as best as we can. Then it's pretty straightforward. Do the scotch tape to build that arbor for the reel seat. Put on the reel seat. Now this is the part where I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip. When I attached the reel seat, what I did was, as I was putting it on, I spun it on really slowly. And what that did was it sucked all the glue, all the epoxy into the reel seat rather than pushing it up and creating a mess. I thought that was pretty easy. The second thing I'm going to tell you is that on the reel seat, go ahead and screw those screws all the way up. That wasn't the case for me, and when I went ahead and put it on, the screws for the reel fell off, and it kind of created havoc when I went to finish up the rod and put the cap on. So, go ahead and do those things, pretty easy. Okay, so now we're going to talk really briefly about measuring for your guides. So when you're measuring from the guides, remember that you're measuring from the tip of the fly rod to the butt of the fly rod, not the other way around. So, all I did was I got a tape measure, I got a China marker, and that's how I did it. And I just went down the line, I laid it all out on a table. I will say that some of those marks have come off during the process, so don't throw away the chart that gives you the dimensions for where to put the guides. That's going to be really important. I've had to go back to it a couple times. And also, don't forget that the yellow markings on the chart, those are going to be places where you might have a snake guide come in contact with the ferrule part of the rod. Now that's okay. Just go ahead and move up the guide just a little bit. That's what I did. It did happen on just one of the top section of my fly rod. So not a big deal. The directions address it. Hats off to Carl and the guys at Swift. I said this before and I'll say it again. The directions can't be any easier. Walk through step by step. Every part of the process is covered and you shouldn't have any problem getting this thing done. In the next part of the series, I'm just going to show you how to do one of the wraps, and then we're going to attach the tip to the fly rod, and we're also going to apply the finish coat to the actual fly rod. After that, you know what it's time for, to get that thing out on the river and catch some fish. This has been a great process so far, and like I said, hats off to everybody at Swift Fly Fishing.